Welcome, General Valesky, Command Sergeant Major Grinston, to the third quarter of JBLM CHPC, Community Health Promotion Council. Today's topics came from our brigade commands. We will be going over medication disposal, proper take-back procedures, physical fitness injury prevention follow-up from the October CHPC, and also tobacco use and tobacco cessation. Still struggling with that word a little bit. For our agenda, opening remarks, we'll recognize some resiliency heroes. General Valesky will go ahead and do that here in a moment. As usual, we'll go over do-outs, and then we'll get right into our topics, and left plenty of time for discussion at the end. General Valesky.
Thank you. How y'all doing? That doesn't sound very motivating, man. I'm gonna go down here and do some push-ups so we get all fired up. I know where you're all going. 2 hours of your life getting ready to get executed here. Hey, this is an important event, but I'm gonna set the playing field right up front. When I got the pre-brief, there is a lot of really good work that's been going on here. But what I asked my team to do was really define what the core piece of this is. And you know, what I saw, and I equated it when I saw these slides, I was like, these are similar slides I got as a brigade and division commander. I'm not a brigade or division commander anymore. Thankfully, I validated that. Now I get to do this job with all of you, so you'll get to put up with my many weaknesses. One of them is to oversimplify things. That's one of the things I'm a master of oversimplification. So let me oversimplify this. We're going to talk about in future CHPCs from a core perspective what we can do to empower organizations below us. So you're going to start to see in this next piece, this packet is going to get reduced, and we're going to go out of the information for the good of the group, because I believe that this is the executive level of health promotion. And so we're going to tackle trends, we're going to tackle things that the Corps can put its finger on, and the installation as my role as a senior mission commander, that we can put on the installation to improve the health of our service members. I say that because there's some things we're going to do today. I just throw out tobacco cessation. We had a great dialogue about that. But my point would be, what do you want me to do about it? You know? And so I looked and I said, you know, as I look around about just tobacco, you know, I feel a little nervous because we're going to bang a drum, but there's a ton of senior leaders in our Army that use tobacco. So I am a reformed dipper, but I am a reformed dipper, but there's many of my peers that are not reformed dippers. And then I found out there's a policy at JBLM that restricts tobacco use on sidewalks. And I was like, how do we enforce that? If I see Valesky with a dip on the sidewalk, what do? It's not punitive. So do I put my arm around him and say, spit that out? I mean, really, what do we expect to do? And so we're gonna plane this out and say, how do we at the installation level, how do I as a Corps commander with that hat drive policy and resources to help you improve the health of our formations? Does that make sense? Yeah, okay. Well, or we can just do 2 hours of information sharing. And then we can say, what do you want me to do about it? And from my perspective, I want you, the most important people of this are not the ones sitting at this table. The most important people are the ones that I'm trying not to turn my back on. You know what I mean? Because you're the ones that are at that point where, you know, Private Valesky is going to do something that we might think is unhealthy behavior. So from a 3-star perspective, do you want me to drive down to Private Valesky? If that's what I need to do, I'm going to fire every one of you, because I don't need you if I am my sergeant major and I have to go down to the individual level. That's what this is about, empowerment and holding you accountable. But to hold you accountable, I need to provide you the resources and give you the authority to get after it and define it. So when we look at this CHPC vision, we had a good dialogue about that. You know, Valesky's perspective, and you're going to see a new vision from the senior commander on CHPC when we do this again. And what I want to do is, like we did for the vision for the Corps and Team JBLM, is I'm going to send it out to all of the commanders and say, what do you think? because I have a pretty good idea what I believe the course should do and the installation should do, but you may say, nah, that's not hitting on all cylinders. So, you know, fosters a culture of shared responsibility and healthy behaviors. No, it's going to be empowers subordinates, commanders with resources and authority and holding them accountable for the health of our service members. That's what I think the vision is. And then when you look at that vision and pull it out at the end of the day and say, where are we at with a overarching end state of where our service members should be health-wise? And are we achieving that, on the path to achieve that or not? And when you come and say we're not because you aren't doing this, that puts a big rock in my rucksack that I can carry and fix. That's what I do for you. Does that make sense? Or we can go to do information briefs, and I can sit here and go, that's great, thank you very much. And you can give me nothing to do, and then I'll just go do something else. I don't think you want me to do that. I think you want to hold me accountable to help you. So that's my recommendation to you. So after this piece, what I want is you to provide feedback, and we'll send the new agenda out for the next one, and I want your feedback to say, are we hitting on that cylinder, or hey, no, we should be doing this. Because I saw the list of topics that we socialized out there for you to do, and I looked at them and I said, from a core perspective, 2 of these, in my mind, are worthy for a core or installation level discussion with commanders. So that's where we're going. Does that make sense? Okay.
Thank you,
Ma'am,
sir.
I turn it over to you.
Appreciate it. At this time, if I could please have our resilience heroes up front.
Are we going up there?
Yeah, I got
Recording?
points.
Okay.
You said 3 or 4.
What's the puppy's name? Trotsky. What's up,
Go ahead.
Yep.
Introduce. So I'm going to do the first introduction of Joe Dewars, who's the chaplain for the 109th MI Battalion. And Chaplain Dewars does everything that you would expect of a chaplain, building resiliency, engaging with soldiers. But he brings along a unique aspect, which is his working dog, Trotsky. And that dog helps him really establish a good connection with soldiers. And many soldiers tell the chaplain that the only reason they go to him, or at least the icebreaker, is the fact that he's got that dog. And that proved to be exactly the case back in January, where the chaplain had built a relationship with a soldier. That soldier was going through a hard time, had taken a bunch of medication in an effort to commit suicide, contacted the chaplain. Chaplain broke immediately what he was doing, had the soldier come in, took the soldier over to the hospital, and we ultimately saved her life by his actions, sir. So phenomenal work by chaplain across the board.
Okay, so what rank is Trotsky? We need to get him to raise his paw and take the oath, and then we need to, like, promote him to PFC or something. You know what I mean? That's up to you. That's up to you. Exactly. The most important people in our army are private specialists and young sergeants, because if they fail, we fail. And you are directly enabling them to continue to succeed. So thanks for all you. Give a round of applause.
Sir, it is my honor to introduce to you Sergeant First Class Castro. He is a BMM soldier to us at the reception center, so he comes from 2-2 originally, but we claim him now at the reception center as one of our BMM soldiers. He is the reception desk in COIC. In the last 60 days that we've had him, he's gone above and beyond to help every soldier that walks through the door at JBLM to get what they need to be successful, to set their families up for success. One example of Sergeant First Class Castro's duties in this is he took a soldier who, when he came here, did not have a home to stay in. He was living in his car with his pregnant wife, and he took him personally to housing. He personally took him to AER to get a loan. His wife actually took the spouse to Madigan to get health care. And so him and his family have really been extramental to what we've done here at the reception center. I can't say enough about Sergeant First Class Castro. If we could keep him past the 90 days, we would. Sergeant Major. Not going to happen. But he really has set the standard for every NCO here at JBLM of how we should take care of soldiers.
But what you need to do is, we talk about transitions, right? When we go to combat, we go right seat, left seat, right. And what I worry about when we talk about receiving, one, where's our sponsors? That's an important thing for me personally. That as we transition these key, great folks that have been getting after it, how do we ensure that all that great experience and knowledge and contributions that the organization gets properly handed off to his replacement, so we don't see a dip, because what's not acceptable is a dip when our soldiers and service members are concerned.
And sir, if I may, his wife is here with their son, Miguel.
Let's give it up. Thanks for all you do. Couldn't do without you. Awesome. Okay.
Sir, thank you for the opportunity to present our soldier. This is Specialist Bukhad, and she's a native from the Philippines. And she joined the Army through the MEDPROS program in an effort to become a United States citizen, as well as establish a career for her and her family. In order for her to actually become a member of our rank and file, her husband had to return to the Philippines because he had exhausted his work visa, taking with him their infant son. So even in the light of the fact that she cannot be a mother to her son and raise her son at this time or establish a family unit, she has been a stellar performer. She continues to put the mission first. She always asks for challenging tasks, and she considers her duty to the country her duty to her family. So I just want to say on behalf of our soldier and the First Sergeant that we really appreciate her, and it is our honor to be able to present her to you today.
Another round of applause.
All right, we'll go ahead and get into our meeting objectives. As usual, we'll go over our gypsy do-outs. And again, today's topics are from the brigade commanders. In your backup slides, you will find the list that we received from everyone if you're intrigued to see what other brigade commanders put up on the table for topics. This morning we'll increase awareness about the prescription medication disposal processes. As previously discussed, go over injury prevention and tobacco use effects on readiness. And Colonel Pettit? Did you want the mic or?
Good morning, sir. The R2 dashboard provides a snapshot of metrics found in each of the 5 dimensions of the R2. This legacy slide will be retired in lieu of one that better reflects and portrays trends in these resiliency areas. We will get on that, sir. The amber items are those we're closely monitoring due to recent upticks in negative performances like crimes, domestic violence, etc., or the gravity of scale like suicide. Some we keep our eye on constantly. The R2 team will continue to work a product that portrays more of the trend, sir. Next slide. For the do-out, sir, those current do-outs have been carried from the past CHPSEs and will be worked to resolution or closure. 4 have been approved by you, sir, at the pre-brief the other day, so we'll close those out. The green items on the sheet. The Health and Force Action Plan is in draft, awaiting FORSCOM publication and your approval, so we'll get that in front of you, sir. The RST integration during the periods of transition is being addressed in the spiritual work group, will be continued to be worked. And we will discuss the embed of physical therapists into the PRT later in the brief. Great program, it seems to be paying off dividends. And as far as the command finance NCO, sir, This due-out remains red, early identified as a hindrance to readiness. The training program was developed as a mitigation to service members' financial distress. The program is not being utilized. The course is a week-long. Financial distress may no longer be perceived as a readiness issue, or if the commanders see it as an issue, there may be a better way to get after this issue. And I would recommend either throwing this back into the work group to find other potential solutions, or I would open it to the floor for some comments on how to get after the financial readiness of our soldiers, sir.
As they talk this piece to me, commanders, you know, my question was, you know, the length of the course, not getting a lot of people participating in it. Is it value added? I mean, or is it, because it takes resources. And, you know, as we look at the pressure on not only the headquarters and Manning, but the pressure on all of the things we're doing, is this something that we want to continue to dedicate resources to? And so my question to you is, one, is this valuable? If it is valuable, what are the challenges of using it? If it's not valuable because you already have your systems in place that you don't need to do this, so your command reports and all the rest of that are being done. I mean, this was clearly put into place because there was a perceived need. Is the need over and not required anymore? So I appreciate any feedback you have. Anybody want to send a round down range on this one?
Sir, I guess from 593rd's perspective is we do not see a lot of usefulness right now in the command financial NCO position. We see this as more going back to the chain of command, starting with basic blocking and tackling at the UCFR level. An additional duty on the NCO almost takes it away from the chain of command a little bit at battalion level. So although we have 4 or 5 at battalion and we're sending another one in the June course, I think this is probably one that we just take back to the chain of command and say, hey, if we're doing UCFR right and we're knowing our soldiers, staying connected, this is probably one additional duty we don't need to add to the formation.
Hey, sir, I'm gonna do typical Sergeant Major Grinson stuff. Sergeant Major Winstead, what do you think?
Major, I don't think they're necessary. I agree with the gentleman up front that the commanders review command financial readiness reports every month, so you can see clearly when a soldier has a problem and identify the steps needed to correct the issue.
Well, yeah, I mean, that was going to be my question. Here's the deal. Sit down. Thank you for your input. Okay.
So I concur with that it's a chain of command's responsibility, so I don't know that an additional NCO doing that helps the system and that he's one off getting down in there. I do know that the company commanders have routine difficulties with the UCFR process and updates not reflecting in the next months after they update for personnel or numbers or whatever it is. So maybe it's, instead of this NCO, we spend a little time on figuring out the UCFR system to get that straight so company commanders can knock that out one time and then it's consistent for the next month.
Briefed on government travel card delinquencies. And I think that the total I heard was 1.2 million right now in the Corps. I'm willing to do whatever y'all think is right here. I'm a big accountability of the chain of command at the point of the decisive point, which is the chain of command. If you say, did I hear, Con, what you were saying, that we had an issue that company commanders don't understand the report itself? It's just a user interface issue. That's the part I don't understand.
Yes, sir, and I'd have to get with the company commanders to get the specific details, but the feedback from them is it's not that they don't understand the report. They routinely update the report, send those updates in, and they are not reflected in the next month's report. Right. And so they are constantly playing catch up or correcting errors that should have been corrected before.
Sir, I think we're also talking about 2 different things too, just so we know. So the unit commander's finance report normally doesn't show government travel cards. So, I mean, unless that's a change, the DTS report shows, okay, so I think there's another little report that shows, I completely agree though, but this has been a problem, what I said, for like 200, we'll say 42 years. Because when I was a first sergeant, when I changed the commander's finance report, and I line through, this person isn't here, this isn't right. I think you're right. So I would ask that we provide feedback all the way up on the pros and cons, because we did this for a reason, you know, because we're not talking with our soldiers, and it's not just, it's government travel cards and I think UCFR timeliness and reporting, since it's online now, and we took away all our finance detachments, because that's where I used to go. I used to go when I couldn't get it fixed. I go show up the finance detachment and said, hey, look, but we just inactivated. I think our finance detachment is gone now. It's the only one we had on the old installation, and we report somewhere like Fort Riley, right? It's something crazy. This summer. So I think that's part of the commander's finance report. And then there's a whole different problem with the government travel card. Because that report is arrival too. So if I have PCS and I don't arrive you and I don't show on my report, then I'm delinquent, and then everybody gets a government travel card, and I have to use it PCS. And I think those are two separate issues. But my recommendation, sir, is we give feedback up, but on whether we want it or not.
Well, the reason I asked about government travel cards is because I assume, maybe wrongfully so, that Command Financial NCO, that was one of the things he was also managing, the whole financial piece. If he's not doing that, I mean, in my mind, the government travel card issue is one of the bigger issues that we have in the Army, frankly. So, you know, my point is, one, if we defined what this guy's roles are, it sounds like you say, yes, he does this or she does this. If the problem is a system problem with input and updating, that's not a problem with education or management. Go ahead.
Sir, Larry Diller, Triple Nickel. I think all these indicators that we're talking about are lagging indicators. So the government travel card, that tells you you have a problem after the problem starts. Same with the UCFR, it tells you the soldier has a problem after the problem. And this financial NCO was designed to get ahead of the problem, to educate soldiers about making smart financial decisions. So the question is this the most effective way to do that? And I agree that the chain of command is better off doing that. So, you know, I tell young soldiers when they come in at my newcomers brief, you should take your squad leader with you to the auto dealership, because you never bought a car before and they have, and they know what they're doing. And I think that's a chain of command responsibility, not an additional duty for an NCO in the unit.
Yeah, I mean, here's the challenge. Whether we like this program or not, the only way it's viable is if people attend it. So we can say we want to keep it, but if people aren't going into it, it doesn't really matter. You know what I mean? So the next class of this class is in 2 months, right? Is that how I read this?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, June.
Okay.
Sir, if I may, so as the Joint Base Garrison Commander, we can run this program, or we don't have to, based off of what the commanders want. So right now we're about a third filled with them. If they're not having the effect that they need with the commanders and the units, then we don't need to run it. I mean, we can do what you all want, obviously. But the government travel cards is one aspect, the unit, you know, financial report is another, but when you go to like the risk factor shock group, when you look at that stuff that we track across, you know, the Army side, our financial reporting is actually not bad. It's within the, as we redefine it a little bit and get it a little better, we're within the band of excellence a little bit. So we're kind of going up and down a little bit. But that's just a measure of performance. It doesn't really get at the other trends. So we kind of dug into this a little bit more, and we were seeing, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was about 18% of the queries that we had in certain units, the soldiers were in significant financial distress or having some financial problems, which gets into the reporting part, which drove this discussion about whether or not we would implement this program to educate, like what Larry just brought up. Personally, I agree with every one of the commanders and the CSMs here about the chain of command, that we don't own the soldiers, we don't command them, we don't control them. If I was on that side of the table, I would say the exact same thing. I got it, I'll lean forward and preempt it and be preventative and get it fixed. But I don't know if Arnie is your financial guy here, you know, for the base. So I don't know, Arnie, if there's anything else you want to add just to give a perspective on some data.
Sir, we've run the class 7 times, or offered it 7 times. We've had it run 3 times. We have to have 5 or more attend because it's a 40-hour class, so we've got to have, and there's class participation pieces in there. We're sitting at about a third of the brigades have a CFNCO. The data we come back, we haven't gotten large amounts of data back from the CFNCOs, and we have not seen any real changes to the shot group or the risk factors by providing the CFNCOs. One way or another, we're here to support. We'll provide the class if we need to provide the class, or we're here with financial counselors to come support your commands as we go along.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the telling piece. If we were done it, what have we seen as the measure of effectiveness of this measure of performance? So here's what I don't want to spend a bunch of time on this one topic because we got a lot of things to get into. If you feel passionate that this is something that is required, and here's the other piece I'd say, you know, it seems every time we want to do a program, it's a 40-hour course. You know, that's a lot of time. So what are the critical pieces that the education that you're talking about gets to? And instead of making it a 40-hour course, could we send folks out and say, here's some of the data, the trends that we're talking about, and here's some things you need to keep aware of for the chain of command as they go manage this financial issue if they have one in their unit. I just, you know, every time I hear about a 40-hour course, everything wants to be 40 hours. And my point is what is the must piece of this 40-hour program that is going to make a difference? Because if you're telling me I'm putting in 40 hours and I'm not making a difference, then I'd say, well, are we teaching the right stuff? If we've got a third of the brigades and we haven't seen any impact, our measure of effectiveness is not where it needs to be. So what I'd like to do, Tammy, is let's look and say, okay, right now the initial report is, hey, this is something the chain of command should be able to manage on their own. And we don't need this course for 40 hours for another duty for an NCO break. Is there key aspects of what the Garrison has done that are value added to the chains of command that we could say, hey, great, I'd like you to go to the brigade and say, get as an NCO PD, potentially part of the program, here's some of the things you might want to consider because here's where we see these issues. And let the commanders use that as a capability to enable a measure of effectiveness to get at the problem this program was done. So let's look at, it's not an either or in my mind. There's an and somewhere. And is the and worthwhile? And if we said, no, that doesn't even work, then I'm willing to say, hey, we got better things we can do with our time. But I don't want to just throw it all out and then come back 6 months later and go, you know, there's a piece of that we probably should have kept. And then I'm asking Dan, hey, we need to resurrect pieces of this. And you're like, thank you very much. Because you'll have like 15 other things I've asked you to do in 6 months. Okay? Yeah.
Listening to this discussion, financial struggles are almost like a health or a dental issue where they're an individual problem that has varied problems. It could be your leg, your arm, your eyes, your teeth, and which often needs an individual solution rather than just a class that tries to go over general topics and hopefully that applies to that soldier. And so an approach perhaps like a MEDPROS or a readiness, a medical readiness, a dental readiness, and a financial readiness where you are red, amber, or green, and if you're amber or red, we need to get you to this individual counseling. Let's work out your specific financial problem and make you financial readiness green, for instance, and handle it on a more individual basis rather than taking a big class and everybody in it.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Okay.
Roger, sir. I understand your guidance.
All right, thank you.
The last one that's on the slide, sir, is the soft skills development. This was from the January CHPSI as we discussed the difficulty in training this skill to our junior leaders. If there's any feedback, I'll take that, but I think we should give that a little bit more time to flesh out. What was recommended is we ensure that those kind of soft skills are trained in NCODPs or leader development programs. Just how do you take a soldier and counsel them, and kind of the softer side of the counseling piece for the soldier, sir.
Yeah, okay. The words mean something to me. So if you've read Understanding Valesky, you know I'm reading what you're writing. So I don't understand, Tammy, what you said versus what the remarks are, because those don't sound compatible. I mean, counseling and that versus the soft side of Sears and sharing hardships and personal stories. I mean, I'm not sure what that is. So what I need you to do is send me a note that tells me really why this was developed and how that's tied to the remarks piece of this.
Roger, sir. Too easy.
Okay.
All right. I'll be followed by Captain Nemblesick.
Good morning, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, Captain Nebelsick, Pharmacy Assistant Chief at Madigan, and I'm excited to be here with you all today to be able to share a couple of recent initiatives we have at Madigan that are solutions to the problem of excess, expired, unwanted, unusable medications in our service members' homes. So the problem is that today, as a service member in the home, the easiest and unfortunately, most widely known method of disposing is to throw them in the household trash, which of course contributes to inappropriate use, diversion, drug addiction, and potentially accidental exposure and overdose. Or number two, flush it down the drainage system, which of course pollutes our precious water supplies. So the solutions that I'm excited to share with you today are listed on the slide here that we feel can make this a safer, easier process for our service members. On the left, you can see our medication disposal MedSafe collection receptacles, and we have these at 2 locations, Main Madigan Outpatient Pharmacy and Akubo Clinic. It's relatively straightforward and easy. We do ask that patients remove their name and protected health information from any prescriptions, but just simply drop the original prescription container into the MedSafe and your medication's safely disposed. These were implemented as pilot projects in late 2015, early 2016, but they've been incredibly successful since at Madigan. We've actually seen in just over a year, over 5,000 pounds of medications have been returned in just these 2 small bins. So major risk avoided in that, definitely. And then on the right-hand side, you can see our alternative option. Another option we have for disposal is the MedSafe, or the mail-back envelopes. Similar to the MedSafe, we do ask remove protected health information and name from the label, but just drop the original prescription container in the envelope and take it to the closest United States Postal Service mail drop box location, drop it in, and the med safely disposed. 2 important issues I do want to highlight for you all for these today is that the company we've partnered with, Sharps Compliance, asked that we do not dispose of needles, sharps, hazardous waste substances, so please, and regular trash, don't bring those here. And number 2, and probably the most important message, is that it is a DEA federal law violation for me to ask anybody else to transport my, in particular, controlled substance prescriptions through either to the MedSafe or through the envelope to the Dropbox location. So it has to be me. The DEA calls it the ultimate or end user legal controlled substance prescription holder has to take them there. So make sure we communicate that. The barrier to the envelope, sir, today is availability. And we only have them available currently at our JBLM pharmacy locations. But to improve that and in order to facilitate easier access to you all, we have brought some here and you can see them on your tables. But we'd also like to make the following information known to you all and your leaders, is that if you have an aid station or a medical logistics activity on post and they're a Madigan Logistics Division customer, they can use this information to order the envelopes themselves. So please pass this information to those people in your units so they can get them to you.
Sir,
Go ahead.
Clearly I got the question. Are we going to expand this to every brigade soldier medical home? I mean, this has been a problem. Again, I go back to the 200 years. I got a soldier, he's got 15,000 things in his locker and, marching them over. Are we expanding that to every brigade footprint? Because this has been an issue for a very long time.
Absolutely, I would agree.
So the answer to that is, are we going to get more of those in the soldier medical homes in the brigade footprints? Over.
So I believe that's what this does. And so currently they're not. They're only available at pharmacy locations, but it is a regular Class 8 medical logistics item, and that can be made available to any medical activity that is set up through Madigan
Sir, Major,
Logistics.
Two things. Yes, okay, we can get them to all of the clinics that we have. 2, all of the brigades have the ability through their medical company to order, so you can get them both directions.
Yeah. Yes, sir. I'm just, I'm just a soldier and I'm mildly lazy. What I'm not, is that if it's at the soldier medical home, not the envelope, that when I go in there, because we got some, and I can have a drop box in the soldier medical home, not get an envelope. Because I'm just guessing.
Yeah, he's asking about the drop boxes in the.
So,
in the
Sergeant Major,
other
we'll have to
building.
look at that. That's because there's a number of legal things that we have to do for security reasons and all the rest of them, and I'm not sure that all of them are going to meet the standard, as well as all the coordination we have to do with emergency services and so forth.
And I can help there too, sir. You do have to be a DEA registrant. That's the only way to do it. And you do have to modify your registration appropriately to be a collector. And the only way you can do that was with a collection receptacle, as we have in the 2 pharmacies.
I acknowledge. You know, that's a hard task, and maybe the Corps needs to take that on. That's why I'm asking, because I still see the envelope as, again, you know, the lazy soldier. If I can walk over there and get the envelope, do I put it in? But as a leader, as a young sergeant, I can march you over to the soldier medical home. I think that's something we need to look at, sir. I know it's hard, but if it was easy, you know, we'd have the squad leader do it.
So the other thing, sir, is
Hold
that...
on. I think that is a long-term project because of what the legal ramifications. As we talked about amnesty boxes and brigade areas for ammunition, I remember how hard that gets to be. So, but Sergeant Major's point, this is the same thing we talked about in the pre-brief, and that's the same response you gave me. So let's look at what the long-term way ahead is. But my question is, are these envelopes a controlled item?
No, sir.
Okay. How many do you have on hand at Madigan right now?
I have 50 additional here with me today, sir, and at Madigan main pharmacy right now, we have an additional 100 on hand, but they can be ordered in any quantity, and it just comes down to giving
I'm with you.
Yes, sir.
So how long does it take to get envelopes ordered and them to arrive to Madigan?
Typically within a couple weeks, depending on how long
I
it's
want
been
you to
since we
start
ordered.
ordering envelopes like they're going out of style, okay?
Yes, sir.
Because the brigades, this $5 per disposal bag.
Yes, sir.
I got, my G8 will figure out the money piece, I'm sure, working with Garrison and the rest of the community. But my Sergeant Major's point is we got an issue today. So we have a short-term solution for accessibility, and you know, the squad leader can go into a guy's room on health and welfare and go, hey, read that prescription and let me see the expiration date. He can do that legally, yes?
Yes, sir. So there's the legitimate use 6 months for controlled substances. So anything beyond that, it's no longer
But
usable.
my prescriptions, because I'm an old man and I take 100 of them, they'll have an expiration date on them, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the squad leader says that's 2 weeks expired, why do you still have it, right?
Yes, sir.
And then he can supervise that, get the envelope, that soldier has to put it in there, and he can march his little rear end to the post office box, and they can put it in there, right?
Yes, sir.
There's no legal ramification with that?
No, sir. I would caution, though,
Oh,
that
here we
with
go.
expiration dates on the prescription
Well, then you need to
vials-
let us know what that is.
Yes, sir. I can do
I
that.
mean, you know, that's my Sergeant Major's point. If this is, we have to make sure this is foolproof, because if we've got an issue and we've done something wrong with chain of custody, or we've done, so what I need you to do, and if you have Mike already, fine, I just haven't seen it. But this should be like, you know, very, very simple for Sergeant Valesky when he's walking through his footprint to say, okay, here's what the criteria is. Because my Sergeant Major said, this is an issue that we've been dealing with for years. And you've developed a solution, maybe not the best one, but a good one, better than we've had. And I want to make sure it's foolproof. And I want to make sure no one can say, well, I don't have the envelopes, so I flushed it down my toilet. You know what I mean? So I need you to help us with that. And then we'll take on this piece about how we work to get these other capabilities inside footprints. Does that sound reasonable? Sure. Does that make sense? Okay, but I don't want to hear somebody tell me, you know, it's been 2 months and we ran out of the 150 envelopes and now we can't do anything.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We'll get on ordering more. And of course, so as I said, I did bring a few extras. So if you want 5 to 10 to get you started for your activities, can get them ordered. Please come see me afterwards. And
I might need 5 or 10 myself.
Okay. Yes, sir. That's all I have, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, subject to questions. I'll be followed by Major Olson.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Any questions for the group for that piece?
Sir, just a comment to expand on it. Are the commanders, sergeant majors, is that going to scratch the itch? If we can do those things, is that going to get us what you need?
Yes.
Okay.
Good morning, sir. Sergeant Major, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Major Kirk Olson, the 1st Corps PA. Next slide, please. To update you and the assembly of the recommendations of October's CHIPSI, we've listed the recommendations on the left side of the column and some of the actions taken on the right side for those recommendations. To highlight briefly, with regards to maximizing PRT and developing the MFTs, in addition to the Bayonet Warrior Athlete Program and the 593rd PRT initiatives, we have implemented fitness assessments in processing. Lieutenant Colonel Storr, the Chief of Madigan Physical Therapy, will soon discuss these assessments and their work with the master fitness trainers in a little more detail. One of the recommendations to maximize the healthy lifestyles include taking advantage of the multiple programs and increasing the referrals to the Armed Forces Wellness Center. And since the last October CHIPSI, those referrals did in fact increase as of yesterday, in fact a little bit higher than these numbers indicate here, by 35% from the Soldier Center medical homes and 43% from the patient-centered medical homes. See that as a step forward. Tobacco use might be job security for clinicians like myself, but it's not really consistent with health and medical readiness. We will have further discussions on this topic and nicotine trends and cessation later and presentations discussing this morning. Through tools like the Commander's Portal and Unit e-Profile reviews, we continue to have better visibility and to improve communications between medical specialists, the unit medical personnel, and leadership as well, to help determine, ideally in a timely fashion, if our soldiers are on the glide path to successful recovery and readiness, or if they're likely going to need to enter the IDES process. Communication is key. As a clinician, I can be honest, I can tell you I love hearing from commanders and first sergeants because they get the opportunity to see soldiers when they're being soldiers. Finally, our injury prevention working group has been incorporated into the R2 physical working group under the G1 with collaborative representation from across JBLM. Next slide, please. Looking at some of the readiness trends over the last 6 months, we have at the bottom of this screen last month's FORSCOM readiness report. Future iterations of this report will actually change a little bit as their FRAGO just came out yesterday with some updates. But in the last 6 months, our readiness has improved. As you can see, the MRC1, that's medical readiness category 1s, are trending in the right direction and improved over 5 percentage points. The MRC Go, that includes the MRC 1s and the 2s. The 2s are just need a little, something like they may need an HIV, may need an immunization or glasses, something like that. Those are the MRC Goes. They have also improved in a good way and are exceeding the Army goal of 85% in a good way. Additionally, I see that as engaged leadership and individual responsibility. I think I also want to send out kudos to our medical in-processing who have indicated that about 75% of soldiers that arrive on JBLM need some sort of readiness tweaking. And they are able to actually get 95% of them out of the door to their units in an MRC 1 category. MEBs are up too, which I believe is actually a good indication, showing good communication between leadership and the medical personnel to identify those are at the medical retention determination point, or MRDP, and ideally identify them soon enough so we can help either find out if they are on the glide path to success or to help them transition to the next phase of their life with dignity and respect. And on the bottom, we've had significant improvement in the MRC4s. Those are the PHAs, and those do dental exams as well in the last 6 months. And we've exceeded the MRC4 initiative of under 2%. And this shows continued importance, I believe, of personal responsibility and engaged leadership. Subject to any of your questions or any other discussions of lessons learned from the field, I'll be followed by Lieutenant Colonel Storr.
Okay, so let's talk, hold on, go back a slide.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I see this MRC Go, and I'm really going to talk about the MRCs holistically, but we'll use that because you put the goal above 85%.
That's the Army goal, sir.
Right, but what's the Army standard for non-deployability?
For non-deployability?
Yeah.
10%, sir.
Less than 10%. So it would seem to me that there's a disconnect between an Army goal and the Army standard of non-deployability. Go ahead.
So the MRC Go is MEDPROS pure data. That's prior to commander's discretionary updates for the MRC4s, and for those short-term profiles where based on their assessment of the individual soldiers and their individual condition, they said if we had to fight tonight, we could fight tonight. So that's where that delta is, and I think we're going to continue to see those two sets of numbers and track them. And I know at FORSCOM they're socializing these as two separate numbers.
Some of the delta there is also included in the deployable column that shows as well, sir. That shows the commander overrides, or the ones that the commanders have made determinations for deployability purposes.
We'll see, but then he's not in accordance with 85% anyway.
Yes, sir. And I think some of the things that happened too when we went to the new recording data is that, and the reason why the 85% too is could be used to have 3 alphas and 3 bravos. Now it's just 3s. So you can't really pull that in. And I think that's part of it too. That's the only thing I can think of too is that because there's now 17 or something like that, discretionary codes in the MRC3s, where it used to be 3 alpha. Okay, that person is probably going to be able to deploy because it's less than, I think it was 2 weeks or 7 days or something.
Roger, and Sergeant Major, you're absolutely right. And even within that, we used to look at profiles greater than 30 days. They've ratcheted that down now to 14 days, and we know that even a sprained ankle, sprained knee, a reasonable recovery period is going to be more than 2 weeks. Yeah. But that's not going to affect their deployability based on the timelines we have.
But I'm just looking at this because I look and see, if you go down. And I'm just going to use 593 because you're the first one there, not because I don't love you. I love you very much. Just telling you that front. But the MRC Go is 85%, right? But you look down, there's 78, 81, 80, 84. So those units don't make the MRC goal of 85%. But you look at their deployability numbers, 91, 93, 90. So those commander overrides, when we start talking about, a unit's got 60 guys on it and the commander's overrode 30 of those, you got to start asking yourself, okay, how do these two numbers match up? Because if the MRC Go is 85 and I'm at 80, but I still say I'm at 93% deployable, I'm not sure I understand what the utility of that number really means to me.
The utility of the goal,
the
sir?
Goal,
the 85% goal?
Right. Because if I'm at 80%, but I'm still at 90%, 91% deployability, I'm not sure what the goal of 85% means. That's why I'm asking the question. I'm a standards guy. I try to make everything as easy as I can. So what should the core, because this is really a core, we say, this is my core commander's hat here. What should the core standard be? I don't care what the Army standard is. I know I need to meet an Army standard, but I always want to exceed the Army standard by putting a standard that's higher than that and maintaining a band of excellence that never lets me fall below the Army standard. So as I look at all this MRC data, what is the core standard? Or is the core standard the Army standard? And if that's the case, I don't like the Army standard. So that means I really don't like the core standard. So let's figure out I'll give you an example. Previous unit I was in, the core standard for a 4-mile run was 9 minutes per mile. We get there, 30% of the Corps can make a 9-minute 4-mile run. 30, and it was the standard in that Corps for years. So I was like, why are we doing this? Our standard is going to now be 8 minutes per mile. People are like, that's insane. Well, what happened? 70% of the unit could meet the Corps standard because we had a higher standard. So what I want to do is establish a Corps standard that gets us to be within the band of excellence for the Army standard. See where I'm going with that? So what I need is the commanders to come to provide us feedback that says, here's what we assess the reasonable standard that we should be able to achieve that keeps us above the Army standard. And then we'll look at that and determine what the Corps standard should be. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So Doc? Put that on your OER support form.
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay, are we going to talk about profile PT at all?
Lieutenant Colonel Storer will cover some of those topics, sir.
Okay. I want you to ask how our profile PT is going, because I've been on the installation a little bit, and I've talked to a number of soldiers doing profile PT, so I'd like to see the commanders, because that's part of what you said back there. We don't want to shoot behind the duck. We know we're going to have soldiers get hurt. How are we getting them rapidly back into being ready and fit to fight? And so I'd just like you to tell me how profile PT is going, because I have a few data points. All right? Any questions before we move on? Okay?
Thank you, sir. I'll be followed by Lieutenant Colonel Storer.
Hold on, General James.
Are you going to talk about?
You going to bring it up?
Sir, she will not. She's the physical therapist. So I think what she's going to talk about is the initiatives across the installation that we're going to do that we have changed and in processing so that we don't break our soldiers day one in the organization. So we've met several times. I think that's the discussion. And it's not specifically to it ties to it. It's a link, but I don't think it's answering the question that you just asked.
Sir, if I could talk about it
just
a
a
second. One of the things that we did in Task Force Bayonet was it's a mindset thing. We focus on deployability, not non-deployability. If you wear this uniform, you need to deploy. If you can't deploy, we got to figure out creative ways to get you deployable, or we need to take care of you and get you out, essentially. And what Sergeant Major has come up with, we call our profile PT Ready Injured Reserve PT. And what we've done is some of the brigades, the larger brigades have it consolidated at battalion level. The smaller brigades, like for example, 17th Fab does it at brigade level. What I'd like to do, Andy, if you could talk a little bit about your profile PT or Injured Reserve PT in 17th Fab and how you consolidate it and how you resource it.
Yes, sir. Sir, one thing that we've done because of the physical readiness within our formation was not where we wanted it to be. So Command Sergeant Major, myself, and my doc back there, we got together and said, how can we unencumber the units with regards to physical readiness? So what we did is we consolidated PT with all the battalions within the formation. They show up into a certain area within the brigade footprint, and we break them down into 4 different categories, but primarily from mild all the way up to severe. We've got, our doc is there with some MRT instructors. We have, for everything we do with the PRT, we've got trained instructors that are there on the site with doc working closely with Mike Place's team at Madigan. We've even got physical therapists on the scene. And they go through a process every single day. If you come down to 17th, you'll see a process where you've got soldiers out doing laps around the brigade footprint. You've got soldiers inside the building going to the bicycle, depending on what type of extremities. And we saw a great improvement in doing that because what we're doing is we're unencumbering the units, the battery commanders, because we've got the resources at the brigade that can help consolidate the soldiers. And it's been very successful, and it's actually reduced our numbers quite a bit, sir.
Sir, I've also seen some, and I think it was your program, where they actually had to graduate out of it. There was like a little assessment test at the end.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
It's a level 1. It's like a diagnostic test. Before they can actually leave the program, they've got to pass a certain number of exercises, you know, run for 30 minutes or whatever else. But the units, before we put them back into the unit, they got to pass the test.
We specified those exercises if you want us. Awesome.
And in a different turn, because that was just 7th I need, maybe what the 508 does, I don't know, where's Sergeant Major Flom, is he in it? Okay, well, but you're here. On a different side is that they do an assessment before they even get to the organizations if they're not physically ready to go to a company. I think the 508 does that and the 508, what they do is before they even go down to an organization, they do a physical, that's where we got do we need to do something at the installation. If I arrive and I'm not physically ready, but I'm doing the 12-mile foot march tomorrow, you know, Squad Leader Grinston says, hey, you're doing the 12-mile foot march tomorrow. So what they initiated at the 508th and 504th was they assess them. Maybe they're not ready for that. They'll do some kind of physical assessment. If they're not ready, they give them a special population PT program before they go down into the company so that we don't break them in the first day. Because I think that's happening a lot too.
That's awesome. And that briefs really well. That's a great briefing. And I would say that that's probably exactly right for Sergeant. I'm going to just go out on a limb because I may be completely wrong, Andy, but I'm just going to say it anyway. Because every time I run, I see profile PT going on by individual with people walking. And my problem is it is never specialists, it's never sergeants. It's chief warrant officers, it's sergeants major, it's majors that are all on profile that are doing their own thing. So I just want to make sure that we put programs into place to help everybody deploy, regardless of pay grade. This morning, I'm rolling, there's a sergeant major on his own. Why aren't you doing part of profile PT? You're on profile. 2 days ago, a chief warrant officer and her battle buddy doing profile PT, a long walk. Well, what's your task? What's your program? How are you getting back off reserve status, if that's what we want to say, to get back on the field? So I am confident we have profile PT programs focused at our younger soldiers. But I want to make sure everybody understands. Everybody wearing this uniform needs to deploy, and everybody needs to be able to be ready to fight. And if you've got a profile, hey, some guys like me that are older, we might have a permanent profile. Okay, well, what are you doing to get after to make sure that you're continuing to improve? And I understand that. But when I've got folks that are on their own, and it's every single day, and it's senior guys, I want to make sure that if we got a 3-star general in profile PT, if I was on profile and I was going through that PT program, that'd make a hell of a statement, don't you think? That how important that is? And I'll do it if I'm on profile. Why aren't we targeting everybody in our organizations to be part of that program? Because it's a great program. But I'm just telling you, there are the haves and the have-nots. And unfortunately, the have-nots are all senior leaders. And they should be the ones that are in there leading by example. So I'd ask you to go through your own formations. You all know who's on profile. We better. We all should know what their improvement program is to get back to being fit to fight within the context of their profiles. So I would appreciate to see a lot less individuals rolling on doing profile PT at every pay grade. Is that fair? Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning, sir. Command Sergeant Major leaders. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Carrie Storr. I'm the Chief of Physical Therapy at Madigan. Between this discussion and Major Olson's last slide, it's a great lead-in to what I'm going to talk to you about today. And so of all the soldiers on JBLM that are MRC3, 56% of those are due to musculoskeletal injuries. And then soldiers on profile over 14 days, 75% of those are musculoskeletal injuries. So we've been working really hard on developing some initiatives that will decrease that number, and we'll talk about those today. So the first of these initiatives that Command Sergeant Major Grinston had mentioned is the installation-wide injury screening. So starting in May, every single soldier that arrives on JBLM will be screened during in processing for their injury risk. We've identified 2 tools to help us with that classification. Each soldier will be identified as high, moderate, low risk of injury. The first of those tools is the musculoskeletal readiness screening tool. This tool was selected because it is validated, has a lot of data to show that it can predict injury risk. It's also requires very little equipment, and it can be completed within 2 to 3 minutes per soldier. So it's pretty efficient at identifying those soldiers at increased risk of injury. The test consists of 5 physical tasks, which you can see at the bottom of the page. These tasks are graded based off the quality of the movement, and they're scored at 0 to 2, 0 being that they can't be completed at all. 1 is that they can be completed, but the quality of the movement is poor. And then 2 would be that they can complete the movement without any deficiencies at all. The 6th task is a self-report of level of risk for injury. And that's a self-report, and it's also graded at a 0 to 2. At the end of that, all the scores are added up, and any soldier scoring 6 or below is identified as a high risk of injury, and anyone 7 and above would be low risk for injury. We've been combining that tool along with the medical readiness assessment tool, the MRAT. As commanders, you would be able to see a summarized version of the MRAT. As clinicians, we can see a much more detailed picture of the medical readiness for each soldier. So we're tracking these components and grading those out and identifying those that are at a higher risk. Of these factors, the most predictive one would be receiving musculoskeletal care within 4 months of arriving at JBLM. They've done a lot of injury surveillance at Fort Campbell, and so from that data, we know that about 25% of soldiers arriving here will have received musculoskeletal care within 4 months, and they're at a significantly higher risk for injury or re-injury once they arrive. So based off these two tools, on day 2 of in-processing, the soldiers will be categorized high, moderate, low risk. And then on day 3, any soldier that is scored moderate or high risk for injury will personally be seen by one of the physical therapists stationed at Waller Hall. So when they see the therapist, they will review their medical history, history of injury, look at treatments that have possibly been rendered up to that point, and they will be able to make some recommendations based off that history and the risk for injury. Some of those recommendations may include they need enhanced access to physical therapy, and so they can enter a consult so that they can bypass going to see their unit provider or PCM, and they can get right into physical therapy within 72 hours. It may mean, we talked about this previously, it may mean that they just need to be in the reconditioning or integration PRT for a period of time until they're back up to PRT with the rest of the group. So the end result after day 3, the commanders will receive an injury risk report similar to the reports that you're already receiving for the height and weight tracker. So on that report, you'll have the soldier's name, you'll have red, amber, green, high, moderate, low risk for injury, and then we'll also put those recommendations that we made from the medical in-processing site. We've started actually doing this. It's been a staged rollout. So in March, we had the reception company personnel actually performing the musculoskeletal readiness screening tool. And we've been coaching and working with them to ensure that it's scored properly. At the beginning of April, the physical therapists have been at the medical in-processing site, and they have been screening soldiers, refining our processes to make sure that we're capturing those soldiers that really need to be seeing us. And then starting in May, we'll be full force doing all of this and sending out those daily reports for injury risk. Is there any questions? So moving forward, so starting in May and as we get into the busy PCS period, this is the first program of its kind. What I ask is we could really use your feedback. We want the information that we're providing to you on a daily basis to be valuable and better help those soldiers that are at increased risk for injury. So I welcome any feedback that you have so that we can modify, improve the information that we're providing to you so that it's more helpful.
Sir, if I may, hey, Captain Rutledge, are you in here? I know you should be, but yeah, there she is. So, sir, she's your touch point. She's our HHC commander, and she is your commander that is responsible. She has a first sergeant and being responsible for the in-processing across the installation. And so we owe you a little bit more data. This is one part of it. And there's a lot more things that Sergeant Major Grinston and myself and my Sergeant Major and her first sergeant and herself are doing, you know, with regards to intent and guidance that we've received. And I'm sure you'll have some input and some advice and some new guidance for us as well. Like you said earlier, it briefs very well, and there's without a doubt it does. Your DHR director is in here too, Mark Brown, but you know, so is soldiers out of the divisions and 593rd and so forth processed through Waller Hall for deployments. You know, 9,000 soldiers and airmen in processing and out processing JBLM every year. It will have consternations and frictions throughout the year as well, sir. So, but it is a unique program here, and so Mike and I, Colonel Place and I are talking all the time about it as well. So, but other than that, sir, she is your touch point. So you saw her earlier. I just wanted you to see her again, sir. So,
the whole goal of this, sir, is to give the units a better product. And that's bottom line. So when we revamped in processing to get more MRC 1s and 2s coming out in processing, a lot of people were coming in MRC 3s and 4. So that's the goal, is to give you a soldier after the end of the 7-day in processing, their MRC 1 or 2. And there's some things you just can't fix, you know, so they got to go. And the second piece was, are they at least doing some kind of physical assessment? So we found every time we do height and weights, we don't, the reception company is not, they can't flag them. So when a soldier comes to you that's, you know, 14% body fat over, it's just, as you as a commander, you get visibility in Sergeant Major at that level to say, hey, this is a red flag. And so the same thing, and that's why we really worked hard to get the report, is that there will be red flags. If you take no action, don't come back to me and say, Sergeant Major, this isn't working. So you're right, it's never gonna work if you don't take any action on the red flags that we send you. So we're trying to just identify the red flags for you that gets a focused attention, because you only have so much time. Over.
No, that's really helpful. For 275 and 1st Special Forces Group, you know, back when I was a lot younger, there was a RPAT that we were developing for, you know, a better assessment on physical strength, conditioning. I mean, that was a long time ago. You all deal with physical therapists resourced at a different level than most. Have you passed on any kind of the things that you do to the Corps to say, okay, hey, here's how we're getting after injury prevention, here's the techniques we used, here's, I mean, the Ranger assessment tools that you have in the regiment. Have we leveraged that piece as well, and have you shared that kind of stuff with us?
Sir, the CHIPIC about 18 months ago, since I watched that on a video when I first got here, was briefed on the Thor program from 1st Special Forces Group and 275 at the CHIPIC on what they did for injury prevention. Their physical therapist came about a year, maybe a year and a half ago, came and briefed and said, here's everything that they did at their organization. I think some of us even, I went out to some of their sites to look at what they have in 275's gym, the physical therapist that's located there. They briefed at the CHIPIC. It was a little bit before I got here, so it's been a while, sir. I know we haven't done it recently, but within the last 18 months.
Well, I know, you know, just the way those organizations run, 18 months is a long time, and they've probably spun some things. I mean, is there any, what I'd like you to do is incorporate you and say, okay, hey, I've heard what the initiatives are, because I've seen how much focus that those organizations put on this. I mean, you don't need to say anything now. Is there some lessons that you've learned that are helpful to inform this discussion? Or would it best be suited to do exactly as the Sergeant Major talked about and say, hey, okay, here's kind of what we do, here's what we've seen, here's some things that might help. What do you think?
So we can provide a follow-up. There's been no deliberate approach, at least since I've been in command, but understand based on Sergeant Major's comments, appreciate that previously we have done something. But yeah, certainly there's some resourcing disparities, but programs, assessment tools, leader accountability, those things we can certainly pass along.
See, the resources piece, this gets back to the comment we started to begin with. How do Corps really help? They take those pieces that have been validated by other organizations, and we go to the Army and say, if this is really the problem, then we need to be resourced, and here's the empirical data that others have already showed that prove that this gets after that piece. So I am in a resource unconstrained mindset about getting after injury prevention. And so, and really, once you are injured, getting you back into the fight as quickly as we can based on some of that. So I'm not going to use an excuse to say we don't have the resources, because what I want you to do is tell me what the resources are, and then we can fight for them if we need them. Does that make sense?
Sir, that's why we actually have the physical therapists in the soldier medical homes, because of what they have in their gym. They had a physical therapist.
Right.
So that's how we developed the physical therapist down. It actually became because of the briefings we had 18 months. Now we're getting a more physical therapist. We just can't go down to the battalion level like 275, but that's why they were at the brigade, because of the initiatives we had 18 months ago. And it goes back to the bayonet warrior athlete. That's all what you're seeing now is what we talked about 18 months based off the brief we did get from First Group and 275. You're seeing the equipment coming in so that we can get more focused at the brigade level. And that's what we came up with, and the same thing with this assessments. We did an assessment because we didn't have one, but they have one. But we looked at a whole bunch of assessments, sir, and you know, we can say this isn't the best one, and we acknowledge that. But it was something that we could do with less resources and less manpower. So we don't have unlimited physical therapists right now, and we don't have unlimited BMM for the in processing to do a more robust physical assessment. But we actually tailored some of this stuff based off, like I said, the discussion we had 18 months ago. But clearly, it'd probably be a good time maybe to readdress it.
Yeah, and I'll just echo 275, sir, if you need us to come back to you and update you on what we've done since then. Happy to do it. Two components I would add to the conversation. One is the human performance trainers, right? So some of this prevention is getting ahead of the curve and actually training properly. So making sure soldiers understand how to do the exercises, how to develop human performance over time. Critical component that we're empowered to bring in coaches from the outside. That's a component that I think is pretty critical. And then the assessment itself, we're under the same pressure you are ultimately. We have to provide feedback to SOCOM to make sure that they understand the program is working. And so the human performance assessments that we conduct inside of our facilities with our coaches, with our physical therapists present, that provide those metrics of feedback that the soldier is actually improving physically, and then tracking them through a career. Case in point, we had a soldier that was injured in Afghanistan last year. We can draw some of his resiliency and his recovery to the front end of his deployment and some of the screening we did in human performance before he deployed, and how he was then able to recover, rehabilitate, and then reintegrate into the force and go back to the fight.
It's and that's what the MRAT does. So the Medical Readiness Assessment Tool, I pulled my data, and it goes over a period of time. How many times have I physically been on profile in the life of me of being in the Army on 29 years? So that's why she doesn't show the chart, but the MRAT pulls it all, and how many times you've done it, and then gives some predictive analysis. And that's a tool that, like she said, she kind of said it, that not everybody gets, but the providers can pull your specific data, but data in and data out. So you do have to put, you can't just update your ERB for your PT data, it's got to be in DTMS. So if you put it in DTMS, the MRAT pulls it, and it sees over time from MEDPROS how many times you've been on profile and the length of it over the term of your career, and gives you predictive analysis about if you're ready for another injury. So that's why she's pulling it. So we can say, hey, they're not on profile now, but 6 months ago they were. This was a bad injury. They're at this red status, and it does some little analytical stuff, and it says, okay, they're about, they're at a risk that they're going to have another injury. So the MRAT does that. I didn't understand that until I actually pulled my data. So if you're a commander and you haven't pulled some data and actually looked at it, it would be helpful for you to go do that. Over.
Awesome. Anything else?
Yes, sir. So the next initiative, which we discussed a little bit earlier, which I think is what you're getting at with the Profile PT program. So we at Madigan have a team ready to come to you guys and support you guys and your MFTs and your PRT leaders in helping to develop a more robust reconditioning PRT program. So it is a 4-hour block of instruction that includes both a didactic portion, which they go over programming and planning and the exercises. It also goes a practical application. So the MFTs actually do the exercises that their profiled or at-risk soldiers will be doing. And if you go and watch that, these MFTs and NCOs that are really high speed doing profile PT within the parameters of safety are sweating and they're tired by the time they leave. So it's way more than what we think of as far as profile PT, you know, walking around in a circle for 30 days or for 30 minutes at a time.
No, you called it right, 30 days.
But yeah, so we have these resources available to you, to anyone.
So kind of the bottom line is we have the expertise. We'll deliver it to the point of need, sir.
So for the 62nd Air Wing, so how much, you know, we've been Army-centric here for about the last, you know, half an hour. How are we, with my senior commander hat, how are we, you know, leveraging what we are doing here, understanding the physical requirements may not be as compatible or exact, rather, for Army to Air Force, but are we doing a good enough job sharing those lessons learned that are applicable? Are we providing you what you need from that perspective? And if not, how do we get better?
General, you know what I was going to say for the final round here when we went around the room was not simply just focused on this area as far as physical and because our airmen are pretty badass, which I think we can all agree, right?
Did you say bad? I didn't hear the last part of that.
We did win the all services competition, and I know that's a sore point for you, sir. But.
I was busy that day. If you have a powerlifting category, then I'm all in. So, you know, General, I think as we look at this format and the CHIPIC in general, we rely on the garrison, we rely on the Joint Base Headquarters for a lot of what our airmen need. Just per the Joint Base MOA, organically, we don't have that. But the great part about our relationship is whether it's Madigan or a lot of the services that we're talking about today, the Joint Base Garrison, they track all of that data. And so either they report it or they give it back to us in digestible format for us to report. But the other thing that we do with that data is where you folks have the CHIPIC, we have the CABE, the Community Action Information Board. With that CABE, we go through and we have these very same discussions. And it's ironic, you know, the chief and I sit here and you could substitute soldier with airman on almost every single one of these issues. It is by no means service specific. So what I honestly feel like I would like to see us do is explore a little bit more the things that we're covering in the CABE. You know, besides being airmen and super intelligent and eloquent that we all are, the other thing that we try to do is we are, and humble, we are data centric. So what Colonel Kaczynski has done, which is fantastic, is he's driven our CABE to not just look in the past and look at that data that we've compiled, but as all of our commanders sit around the room, what kind of predictive analysis, what kind of trends can we do to head those problems off so that the next time we have a CABE, we don't have to address it. So I think there are some great lessons learned and some great best practices that I'd like to see our CABE potentially come over here and integrate with the CHIPSI. Because as awesome as it is for Chief and I to kind of be here and almost like potted plants, and we'll take notes and we'll bring back some great material for our airmen, we've got some good stuff on our side too. That General, I'd really think we could bring to the table.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. As I looked at this piece, how do we integrate this as a installation CHIPIC? I mean, the Army's got its perspective, but the other piece is how many of these programs and all these great initiatives really are we blending? You know, I don't care what uniform you're wearing, you're at JBLM, and we're all part of the team. And so if there's a physical therapist piece, if there's a program, in my mind, you know, let me worry about the service pieces, the headquarters pieces, SOCOM, whatever it is. If you're on the installation, I want to make sure that all these things we're talking about, you're tied into and they're available to all of us. And so as we talk about this, you know, this assessment tool, you know, is that something that would be good for airmen coming in? I mean, I don't know, but that's where I want to go with this, to make sure that as a senior commander, we're providing that to everybody in Team JBLM. But I do agree that, you know, from that perspective, we should incorporate some of what the Air Force has got and say, hey, you know, as we talk about this, here's another perspective on it from a different service perspective. I think it'd be very helpful for us. Okay?
Thank you, sir.
Hey, sir, one more quick alibi. I forgot. One of the things we did brief General Abrams on from the outbrief from the Sergeant Majors at the TRADOC FORSCOM brief was having a master fitness trainer MTO position maybe at the brigade level, and that was a recommendation, and trying to figure out, it's getting at some of the prevention and how we could assign them, and that was one of the recommendations made to General Abrams. So as an Army, we're trying to figure this out too, to make it better personnel-wise on what we could do, maybe on an MTO perspective. And that was one of the recommendations for the Army initiative. So, you know, 2025 we'll get it, but at least we're working on it.
Okay.
All right. Our next topic is tobacco cessation.
Okay.
I'm just going to go ahead and get started with our video we put together. Its intent is to be a training tool for you to take back to your units.
Specialist, moving for sergeant. All right, good morning, Specialist. The reason I've called you in here is for the last 2 months, you've bounced your rent check. What's going on?
I just don't have the finances right now for some.
Okay, you don't have the finances. All right. Well, this has become a problem, so when you sit down, we need to take a look at it. So go and have a seat. All right, tell me a little bit about your finances there, Specialist.
I'm just broke right now.
Broke, okay. Well, let's figure out what you're spending your money on. Do you drink?
No, for a sergeant. I'm 20 years old.
20, okay. Good answer. Legally right. Hopefully you're above board on that, because that gets pretty expensive too. Do you smoke?
Yes, for a sergeant.
Okay. About how much do you smoke?
About half a pack a day.
Half a pack a day?
And when I don't smoke, I also chew.
Chew, okay. And about how much do you chew?
A third.
Third of a can, okay. Let's look at the finances on this, because that's what we're here to take a look at. How much does a pack of cigarettes cost?
$8.
Wow, $8. Okay, and how much does a can of chew cost?
$6.50.
Okay, $6.50. Have you ever calculated it out?
No.
Any idea what the cost is?
No, I do not.
Oh, okay. Might be a little shocked here, because half pack a day per month, you're spending $120 a month on cigarettes. For chew, every month you're spending $64.50. So all total, you're spending about $185 a month on tobacco.
Wow, I never thought it would be like that for some.
Okay. Your wife, does she work?
No, for a sergeant. She's looking for a job, but most jobs don't hire tobacco users.
About how much does she smoke a day?
About a full pack.
Full pack. So again, like we talked about, that's another $240. And between the two of you, wow, $424.50 a month. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, I didn't think it would be that way.
Yeah. So you can kind of see where the impact is on that. How long have you been smoking for?
3 years now.
3 years? Okay. So, I mean, you take a look at that the last couple of years, that's a lot. And then, you know, you think about the future, that's a whole lot of money you guys are smoking. Have you ever thought about quitting?
Yes, I have, for sergeant, but it's just really difficult because everyone around me smokes and either dips. And that's the only break that I can get.
So you don't get breaks otherwise?
No.
No. Okay. But you said you thought about it. Have you ever tried to quit?
haven't tried to stop smoking.
Haven't tried to smoke, okay. So let me talk to you about some resources here at JBLM. We're on the home page, which nicely pops up when we log on. Under featured links, you've got your community resource guide. So if you open that up, you're going to come up here. Now to make it easy, let's click on the search function. We're going to type in the word tobacco. And it pops up and you got a couple different resources here. So you've got one for Madigan, you click on that. You've got one for the Army Wellness Center. So let's just take a quick look at the page, see what it looks like. So you got the Wellness Center here. Again, that's located by First Corps and Jensen Gym. You can walk right in and talk to them. Madigan, what you'll need to do is you'll need to go see your primary care provider, the aid station, and then get your referral into there, get you started. There's online resources. You can go and search it on your smartphone, search on your computer. A lot of good products out there to help you stop. Because again, we've talked about, just the financial piece of it is pretty expensive. So just kind of sum up what we talked about here. Obviously the problem that we had you come in here for is your rent. We took a look at the financial on that. In the last 5 minutes, we've learned how expensive it is to smoke. It's over $5,000 a year that you guys are spending on tobacco. Health-wise, as a young soldier, you don't necessarily think about that. But there's long-term effects that come with smoking. How about your PT run? How are you doing on that right now?
Pretty well for sergeant.
Okay, pretty well being?
About a 15-minute run.
Okay, that's passing, but that's not great, Do you want to get promoted?
Yes, I do for sergeant.
Okay, so if you want to get promoted, one of the things that you control is your run time in your APFT test. So, if you can stop smoking, it's going to improve your health. You're going to do better for promotion, because again, it's financially expensive. So there's a lot of impacts that smoking has. But right now, the first thing that we can help fix is just your financial situation. Again, making a rent check every month, not bouncing stuff, that's going to get you in trouble, but we want you to be successful. So again, this is something you can immediately take care of yourself, help you out, and make you a more successful soldier. So, nothing else? Dismissed.
Hey babe, 2 days, no smokes. I need to find something else to do during breaks. Don't know if I can fight my cravings with all these smokers around.
Specialist, you! On the phone not doing anything. Come here.
Sorry, my phone was like...
Moving sergeant.
I need to quit smoking so I can set the example for my soldiers.
Hey, Platoon Sergeant.
Hey, what's going on, First Sergeant? How are you?
Doing well. How about yourself?
Doing well, thank you.
Good, good. Hey, just a few minutes ago, I noticed you had a job to do, and you contacted one of the soldiers out in the smoke break area. How did you pick out the soldier that you called out?
Well, I looked out there, and there's a soldier messing around on his phone, probably on Facebook or Twitter.
Do you think the smokers are out there working?
Probably not, no.
No, it's kind of come up through the junior enlisted. I've kind of had the concern. A lot of times we're grabbing our non-smokers and just working the heck out of them. And our smokers, we're letting them take all the breaks that they want, because how many breaks a day do your smokers take?
Quite a lot, I imagine.
Yeah, yeah. And and kind of looking at it from the productivity aspect, and some of the research that was just recently told to me was that the average smoker really gets about 3 extra weeks of paid time a year.
Wow, that's impressive, First Sergeant.
Yeah, I know exactly.
Wow.
And in the meanwhile, we're taking our non-smokers and just working ever living crud out of them.
Yeah.
So, so I think we need to take a look at that, because what do you think it does to the morale?
I'm sure it lowers it, First Sergeant.
Yeah, and some of the command climate surveys, some that's come up, and definitely voiced a concern on there, just how we're utilizing people. And I think sometimes, as leadership, we also need to make sure that we're also presenting what right looks like and good, healthy lifestyle. Man, you remember that last FTX we had when we got done?
Oh, yes. Came out those big Winston Churchill. Oh, they were great cigars.
Nice way
great times. Yeah. Great times.
No, I agree. But I don't know if that set the right example for our soldiers. So it's something that we need to kind of take a look at and maybe do a little bit differently next time. What are some of the ways that you think we can teach our soldiers to have a better, more healthy lifestyle?
Yeah, so I think what I'll do first, and I agree completely, is I'm going to go back and I'm going to hold a formation this afternoon. I'm going to tell them we're going to continue to enforce JBLM Regulation 1-4. Maybe bring some subject matter experts down from Madigan to talk about the harmful effects of tobacco and tobacco products. And maybe we could even bring the company in on that as well first time.
No, I think that's a great idea, Platoon Sergeant, because, I think, again, we don't put enough emphasis on it, and, it affects readiness, and we want to make sure that our folks are always ready to go. All right, hey, appreciate it, and we'll catch you around.
We'll do.
Thanks. Hey, good afternoon, Specialist Sergeant. I called you back in my office because I wanted to follow up on our discussion that we had a couple months back. At that time, you had had trouble paying your rent a couple months in a row. Good news is I haven't had anything come across my desk or the commanders that said you aren't paying your rent. So I just want to follow up. How are you doing financially?
I'm doing a lot better, First Sergeant, financially. I've been making rent for the past 3 months, and my wife also found a job, so we're both able to put our leftover money into a savings account.
Wow, no, that's great to hear that your finances are so good. What did you do? How did you get there?
I've actually quit smoking, First Sergeant. My wife and I and my squad leader attended the tobacco cessation class from the Wellness Center.
And you said that your squad leader went with you. So what are some of your thoughts, or how did it work for you?
I decided as a leader I should set the example for my soldiers. So when I went to the Wellness Center with him, he was able to hold me accountable, and I was able to hold him accountable on all of our strategies. We also used the You Can Quit Too app to develop a quit plan that we could implement to hold us accountable for ourselves.
Okay, yeah, that's great to hear, Sergeant. All right, Specialist, no, that's outstanding to hear that you quit and you were able to use the Wellness Center to get there. What kind of strategies did they help you implement?
I learned I had to change my environment, so I avoided the smoking area. And when I did get the urge to smoke, I chewed gum. I've also been going to the gym more often to release my stress and anxiety.
That's a good news story there, Specialist, because it's hard enough, and coming in you don't make a lot of money to start with, just fighting all those obstacles, and to be able to get your finances back straight, both quit smoking, which is going to help you out health-wise. I mean, that's tremendous, and then your wife getting a job as well, so that's definitely moving up in the right direction. How's your physical training doing?
I actually took a diagnostic PT test last week, and I was able to almost max out my PT test.
So now again, continued progress. So with that too, all these positive things, your career's moving forward. I think you're probably going to be ready here pretty soon, based on your squad leader's recommendation, to come before the Soldier of the Month board and eventually the promotion board. So thank you.
And then our next presenter will be Colonel Fistel.
Sorry, Major. My name is Lieutenant Colonel Paul Fistel. I'm one of the preventive medicine physicians here at Madigan. And my main intent this morning is to discuss some of the short-term effects of tobacco use. And we all know, you pointed out, sir, in your brief, that we know the long-term effects of tobacco use. As we see here in this slide, the DoD has been trying to get after this problem for quite some time on the left side. But it's safe to say that on the right side, we're not quite where we need to be. Right now, it's estimated that 26% of JBLM soldiers, Army soldiers here on base, currently use a tobacco product in some form. This contrasts sharply with Pierce County, where it's estimated that 15 to 17% of civilians currently use some form of tobacco product. So I think the recommendation that we have here today is to somehow look at this from a comprehensive approach beyond the typical 15-minute clinical encounter that could be available to a provider, and then try and involve the personnel, of course, that we have assembled here today. The top left of this slide here really mentions that 20% of people who currently smoke did not start until they got in uniform. I think that's an important point here, 20%. And why is this a big deal? Well, I think the short-term effects of medical readiness is really the take-home point this morning from my perspective, where my orthopedic colleagues can actually feel a bone and feel the difference in that bone, in a smoker's bone, compared to a non-smoker's bone. That to me is significant. There's a reduction in bone mass. That, of course, translates to stress fractures. We also know there's a decrease in visual acuity, changes in their ability to see in dim lighting, as well as decreased blood vessel function, predisposing them to heat and cold injuries, as well as the changes that you see here, additional blood vessel functions. We also know this course has impact throughout their career. Smokers in basic training who don't smoke in basic training, but who have previously smoked have up to 3 times number of injuries. People in IAT go home earlier. People, once they arrive at their units, have more injuries, and they take longer to heal. We also see here mental health effects, increased risk of suicide, which is kind of counterintuitive. We think that smokers want to go outside to get a break from the stresses of their job, but we see decreased resilience in smokers. This translates to mental health effects, which I think is a big point as well. And then we see the financial impacts. The video does highlight this financial piece. As you can see, from a pack-a-day smoker, at $8.25 a pack right now, on the civilian, I mean, just last night went to McChord and it's right around $7.50, $8 a pack. This translates a pack-a-day smoker up to $3,000 a month. This is extra money they could be putting in their TSP or their car fund, which is, of course, very significant. A quick discussion as well about cigarettes would not be complete about.
What do you?
Yes, sir, Major.
Hey, that's an awesome statistic on the 20%. Before I moved off this, is, would be helpful to know why. Is there any reasons that for leaders to know why 20% when they join the Army start smoking? Over.
So my best estimation, based off of this study, they mentioned societal factors, they mentioned factors related to being in uniform, stressors, deployments, and just really, being with smokers, that getting a break, right? So being, the video itself kind of mentions pretty well that, being with smokers, I think, bottom line, sorry, Major, is I think it's a part of our culture in many regards. And I think it's kind of an important thing to think about.
What we set up here is maybe it's more dipping than it is smoking now. But I think that would be more helpful than just, a statistic, is to say what are those causes.
Sure.
Sometimes I get stressed, but I don't dip or smoke. I think that would be helpful to get commanders to see how we can mitigate it, not just, have a statistic. Over.
Well, I think the other piece is, and I'll just use myself as an example. I mean, I started dipping coming in when I came in because everybody else was dipping. I wanted to be accepted. So I started dipping Copenhagen. I never dipped at home. I never dipped on block leave. I'd be gone on block leave for 2 weeks, and I'd go back to 275, and the first thing I'd do is put a dip in because it's part of that culture. And I dipped all the way till I was a brigade commander. So I think that we got to look and then say, we say, well, guys quit. Well, I quit before, and then I started again for another year, and then I said, okay, I got to quit. Not because I thought anybody around me thought I should stop. It's just healthy for me. I said I was going to stop. I think the other piece is we got to look at how we message this. If I tell, my 19-year-old son, you're not going to do this, the first thing he's going to do is do it. And so as I look at the punitive way we talk about this, you can't do smoking, you can't do this, you can't do this. I think our own messaging encourages youngsters to say, hey, piss off. This is a freedom I have. You can't do anything about it. It's my ability to revolt against authority, whether that's conscious or subconscious. So what I want to do is when we talk about tobacco, we show all these horror stories about this, but I don't see a guy vaping in his car that looks like this. And oh, by the way, if we look at what would be helpful is if you told me what target group I want to look at. Am I talking about privates to young sergeants? Am I talking staff sergeants to major? Am I talking to senior leaders in the Army? There are many senior leaders that outrank me that dip. Let's just be honest about it, about this piece. So where do I need to make a difference? Also, you got to look at, if I'm 19, I'm 10 feet tall and bulletproof, and I don't wear an Air Force uniform. Because they're 10 feet tall and bulletproof as well. And handsome, I think, is what else you threw in there. And eloquent. I forgot that part. So, you go tell an 18-year-old, hey, this in 10 years is going to kill you. They really don't care about 10 years. They're living for today. So my challenge to us is, how do we communicate this in a way that's relevant. And scare tactics, which is why, tobacco use videos and all the rest of this, that's just blurring they don't care. I will tell you, when I was a battalion commander in Iraq and I looked at everybody in my unit that was dipping, they said, what, I could die tomorrow. What the hell is this going to do for me, right? This ain't going to kill me as quick as that guy I'm going out to fight. So how do we look at this messaging? Because as I look at tobacco use, what is all this?
Right.
Every bit of it is, you're going to die tomorrow, this is bad, it's going to cost you thousands of dollars. How about and this isn't, it's working incrementally. Go back to your, I think it's in a backup, well, you can go back to smokeless tobacco 1, 14, 15, 16, that's really incremental. Right. How do we get after what we really want to do? And there's going to be guys that are going to run, score 800 on the extended scale of their PFT, and the first thing they do in the morning is put a dip in. We just got to understand that. So how do we want to attack the problem?
Sir, very good question, sir. And I think the main point from my perspective on this slide is, despite the number of policies that we have in place, and DOD has been trying to get after this for quite some time, and more recently, over the past 10 years, much more increased policies, tobacco-free campus, to include, you mentioned in your introduction, no using tobacco products on sidewalks. Despite those number of policies, we have seen a rather stagnant change in our tobacco use rates. And I agree, we have had a very difficult problem with our messaging campaign. In my opinion, my take on this is the short-term effects of readiness. From a leader's perspective, the use of tobacco products in our young soldiers today, and I would target towards new entry soldiers who have been tobacco-free during their basic training period, to remain tobacco-free. And why is that? That affects their readiness, in my opinion, today, this week, this year. In 20 years, granted, yes, 30 years from now, there's potential for lung cancer. That's not my concern. My main concern is our ability to safely deploy soldiers, and if they get injured, to get better faster. Those things are going to happen if soldiers are tobacco-free. I think if we use that messaging campaign, it will go a little bit further, sir.
Well, I think the other piece, though, is I think, as the DCG was talking about a little earlier, a lot of these kids come in because they want to be accepted. And they're working for somebody they respect that dips. My aide never dipped until he came around me. And my wife made a comment and said, you know why he's dipping? Because you're dipping. I'm like, oh, that's garbage. He's a young man. He makes his own decisions. And she goes, you're wrong. So when I finally quit dipping, he quit dipping. It was the strangest thing ever. And I never said I'm going to quit dipping because I want to be healthier. I never said anything. But he just stopped dipping because he thought that was peace, a piece of what his rite of passage, if you will, to work for me. So I would just say I want us to take the tobacco piece. And it's not just tobacco. There are more issues with alcohol than tobacco. You take all your issues with tobacco, alcohol is the biggest issue in my mind in our Army. And I drink, but I drink in moderation. I want to start looking at a holistic way of approach so we don't just target tobacco. We don't just target alcohol. Let's get after a healthy lifestyle and say, hey, it's about nutrition. It's about, all these factors of fitness that we talk about. But I want to get rid of scare tactics, and I want to start talking about, hey, this is why this is important. But bottom line, is it legal to smoke in the United States?
Yes, sir.
Is it legal to dip in the United States? Is it legal to drink in the United States? Yes. So what do we really want to get after? And we can't, this is not a good end state, if that's what we say. So let's define the end state. Hey, we got a goal out there, but it's got to be an individual decision.
I agree.
Okay?
I agree.
Yeah, send it.
From 6th MP. Before coming into the military, I was a waitress, and kind of how it went was, if you were a smoker, you got a 5 to 10 minute break every hour. If you were a non-smoker, you didn't get a break. And kind of, I think that's how soldiers see it in the Army as well. And maybe if we were to give them some kind of alternative, like had a ping pong table or something, and then did hey, every hour, go play ping pong for 5 minutes. Give them a healthy alternative to give them that stress release. Just some way to stand up, get away from their desk, and that way everyone across the board is doing an equal, rather than, the only way I'm getting away from my desk is if I go outside and smoke. Just a thought.
Okay.
Okay, I can't. I'm just imagining 275s going to go play ping pong on their break. So I was watching both of you, your look on your faces.
But I think your point's a bigger one. How do commanders get involved to do an alternative that resonates with our soldier? That, got a break, yeah.
The people who didn't smoke didn't get a break. So therefore, maybe that's the same thought process going through soldiers' minds, is that, you know, to get that break, to get that release, they need to smoke, they need to dip, and since they can't do it on government around the installation, they have to walk the 50 feet or whatever to the little gazebo. That gets them that 5-10 minutes away from their desk, away from whatever they're doing, to have that. Now, if they had some other kind of release, a healthier release, whatever that may be,
right,
just to instill that, so that to give everyone that opportunity.
Okay. I guess my question would be, do I have to, you know, this would be a good Sergeant Grinston question to that. So why do I have to give them a break to go smoke? Is that a regulation or a law?
Sir, 600-110, there at 63, I'm sorry, at the very bottom left here, the tobacco is to only be used in designated areas. And then it also mentions here that no additional time beyond the routine breaks, Sergeant Major. So that's
exactly.
2 15-minute breaks.
That's my, you know, that's, you know, you're not going on a break to go smoke until we all go. I mean, that's just, you know, that's a little bit of standard and discipline. I'm not disagreeing with you, man. I'm just saying that sometimes sergeants don't know their authorities to say, no, we're still working. You're not taking a break unless everybody else is too. Over. Okay.
Just very quickly, sir, this last slide here just mentions the sheer fact that among our high schoolers today, compared to 2014, we have a 900% increase in popularity of these devices, electronic cigarettes. Those, of course, are our new soldiers coming into formation. Why is that important? Well, these predispose to acquisition of regular tobacco cigarettes, and so that's certainly a concern. A lot of growth in this industry, and that's something that we need to at least be aware of and knowledgeable of. Subject to your questions.
Sir, in the interest of time, I will go through this quick. Most of these lessons learned we garnered, most of these are from the Air Force, sir. The Air Force does seem to be a little bit ahead of the Army in smoking cessation efforts. There seems to be 3 key overarching themes when discussing tobacco cessation lessons learned. One is increased education and access to anti-smoking aids, which I think we're making great strides. Today's video is a training aid that we can use, and we will pass that out so that everybody can see that. Cessation assistance info is in the backup slides, and then apps are continuing to be very popular amongst our soldiers. So those are all available. The second one is the enforcement of current policy. The policies are available from DOD on down to include a joint base reg. Of note, the new
that joint base reg I've never seen, and frankly, most of my staff hadn't seen until we showed it. So, again, that joint base reg in my mind is unenforceable, and we're gonna revamp that piece. Again, the regulations, you know what the regs are. This is all about engagement with our soldiers and education, and you know, so I'm not using scare tactics for tobacco control. I don't want you spitting on the dang sidewalks. I got that. You know what I mean? But short of me telling, it's a punitive regulation. We just got to make sure that we can enforce what the regulations say. So let's not jump all over regulations. The SecDef, the Army, they've got policy. And let's just make sure we are in accordance with that. Okay,
right,
go
sir.
ahead.
And the new SecDef policy that just was published back in late February, reference to tobacco pricing, will establish tobacco pricing as equivalent to what's on the local economy. So that's something new. And then the third is, you know, keeping up with current trends in technology, the vaping, the e-cigarettes, et cetera, and just making sure that's all included in the tobacco cessation efforts. Next slide. Colonel Dillard. Colonel Dillard, last year, the Triple Nickel underwent a performance triad pilot. One element of this study was the study of tobacco cessation, and he's got some points.
So I'll be brief. I think last year, Strike Brigade at the 101st also was doing the performance triad pilot. So, sir, we got tasked by FORSCOM to do the pilot here, and I saw it as a great opportunity. As I assessed the formation, I think our culture is aligned with activity. Our culture is not aligned with nutrition and sleep. And so I try to get after the culture as well as improving soldiers' knowledge, attitudes, and beliefs on all the elements of the triad. So specifically on tobacco cessation, and I acknowledge you don't want to emphasize enforcing regulations, but the only place I've seen the tobacco regulation prohibition inside military facilities enforced is at our medical facilities. So you go to Madigan, it's well enforced as a tobacco-free campus. So I started off by doing that in my headquarters, my footprint. So that was one piece of our tobacco. The second piece is I engage leaders. So I talked specifically to platoon leaders and company commanders and aides de camp who dipped in my headquarters and said, that's not leading by example, you need to cut it out. And so I think across the board, I've seen our leaders start to adopt that policy, because unlike the 18-year-olds, they actually do care what I think, the company commanders and platoon leaders. And then the third thing is when we address newcomers, I talk about a bunch of things that trip newcomers up. So it's sexual assault, it's financial challenges, it's relationship. It's also tobacco. So I talk to our newcomers about, hey, don't pick up those bad habits, especially the ones that are first-term soldiers. This is their first duty assignment. So the net effect of that is we saw a pretty quick reduction, about 15% of our soldiers that use tobacco, and I think we've been able to sustain that pretty well. We're still hitting that hard. You know, we've got somewhere around 34% of our formation that uses tobacco, but it's a significant reduction from where it was previously at 40%.
Thanks, Larry.
Hey, thanks.
All right, sir, for recommendations from our SMEs for the medical take-back, the take-back process, we'll make sure that's disseminated and the information is available. We'll look at a few initiatives as we capture those in the due-out, sir. The physical fitness injury prevention remains the key to keeping soldiers members in the fight, and we will keep on that. And for tobacco use and tobacco cessation, I think enforcement and finding ways to encourage quitters, take a look at some of the breaks within the formations of how we can encourage tobacco cessation, sir. For the health force update, two things of note: the postpartum pregnancy training, part 2, 12 through 16 January, mobile training team is going to come here to JBLM for this course. And the MRT level 1 training, the next course, as you know, we offer this quarterly at the Clarkmore School with our CSF2 team. It's 5 through 16 June as well. Next slide. So the next Gypsy is 26 July. Mark your calendars. This is tucked between Talisman Sabre and UFG. We'll all meet together, and the council will be hosted that next time. We're at 59030 ESC. Next slide, sir. I have the due-out, sir, unless we can just want to bypass that. And we will send those out to everybody. If we've missed any, we will encourage you guys to send us back with what you thought you heard. I've got a whole team of a squad over here collecting the due out, so we'll make sure we capture those, sir. And with that, I'll hand it over to you.
Anybody behind over there, Doc? Anybody back there? Anything, Andy, from your side of the rows over there? Anybody? Con, anything? Anybody back here? Back over here? Anybody? Good of the group? Over here. Anybody got any alibis, saved rounds? Back here? Anything? Dan? Anything? Good, Mike. Chief? Anything? Dan, that? Good.
Sir, we didn't cover the due-outs, but I'm going to ask brigade CSMs through your MSC CSMs, Sergeant Major Williams, Sergeant Major Love, give us feedback on those financial NCOs. I'd like to get some of your personal feedback through brigades to MSCs, please, to me. That's the only other due-out that I would just like a little extra from the Sergeant Majors up through, and that's all I have. Over.
Yeah, I appreciate the team's efforts here. This is a beast to get your head around. And, you know, this is the one piece where leadership, we say leadership matters, it really matters here. And, you know, everything we do here has to, in my mind, have a tangible output. So if we're just briefing something for information, you know, the question you'll always hear me say is, what's the so what of that for us? My role is to empower you with authority, resources, and hold you accountable for the things that get after improving readiness in our formations. And so the comment that resonates with me the most is when we talk about this financial NCO is this is the chain of command's responsibility. that's exactly where I expect it to be, because that's exactly who I'm holding accountable. I don't care if you got 100 financial specialists in your organization, you're going to be held accountable for it, because that's what the Army and our Air Force and all of our other folks have paid us to do. That's the authority that's given to you as a commander. And so you'll hear me continually defer to commanders, especially in things like this. For the next CHPIC, I want our Air Force partners, teammates to come in and be part of this, to talk about a piece that they may do from a service perspective that can help us here at JBLM. I want us to start with the do-outs for the next one, say here were the do-outs, here's where we are. Because you know, the big piece I'll be looking at is who's that target audience for tobacco cessation that we're talking about. I think we need to do that piece. I'm going to ask us to get some collaboration for the messages that we want to start to flip this from a, you know, scolding perspective on tobacco to a, hey, here's how we're going to motivate, you know, intervene, act, motivate, to get our service members, you know, healthier, and how that ties into the overall wellness of our formations. And then I'll finish with where I started. You know, I want to know where from the commanders what rocks you need me to put in my rucksack to help you get after the health of the force here. And I take that seriously. You know, today I've got a few pebbles in my rucksack. I got strong enough shoulders with the great teammates I have around this table to put big boulders in there. So if there's something that's on your mind that you need help with, this is the forum. So don't let me walk out of here without any homework, because that's what I do for you. I've asked our team to look at the policies that were previously in place. What policies do we need to have that are additive to what the Army or the Air Force policies already are? I don't need to have a policy letter if there's a regulation that says that. I also don't want to put a policy in effect that hasn't been socialized by the commanders that have to execute it. So if there's some policy out there that you say, this just doesn't make any sense, get that back in and let's review those, because I'm in the process of doing that now. And I'll finish with, thanks for everything you're doing. This is not an easy job that you've been given. There's a lot of responsibility. There's a lot of things that are jumping in to distract you from this. But in my mind, this is all deploy, fight, and win. That's what this does. And if there's something in here we're talking about that doesn't directly tie to deploy, fight, and win, let's not talk about it, because you've got enough things to do. So I'm giving you back 10 minutes today, because you deserve more than 10, but that's all I'm giving you back.